All right, we can get started. Hey folks, thanks so much for joining us today and welcome to our joint event with the Zeeve platform. I'm Kevin Doubleday, I'm the Director of Communications here at Fluree, and I'm thrilled today to be joined by Buck Flanagan from Fluree and Gan Bashista from the Zeeve team. This is the next event in the Fluree Partner Webinar Series, where we explore how companies in the Fluree ecosystem are delivering value and disrupting industries. Today, we'll be reviewing how to automate and manage Fluree infrastructure in a multi-cloud environment. We have quite a lot to get through today, so I'll keep this really quick, but as people are still trickling in, some housekeeping items. This webinar will be recorded, so you'll be able to rewatch it or distribute it to your colleagues. And throughout the event, please feel free to use that Q&A tool down in the lower right-hand corner to ask questions. I'll jump back on at the end and moderate. Because we do have two speakers today, try to specify who your question is intended for, or if it's open-ended, that's also fine. And that's it for intros. Without further ado, I'll hand the mic over to Buck to kick things off. Take it away, Buck.
Hey, thanks, Kevin. Get a little more screen real estate here. Hey, Kevin, as always, thanks, and welcome everyone around the globe who have joined us live here this morning, this evening, depending on your time zone. We appreciate you taking the time to learn about Fluree's partner network and our webinar series featuring the innovative approaches to modern application delivery for enterprises. This session, I'm going to begin the agenda with a short review of Fluree's offering of semantic graph technology that guarantees the data integrity, secure data sharing, and powering connected data insights and analytics all in one pluggable stack. Then I'm going to turn things over to Gan from Zeeve for a deep dive into how Fluree can work across various cloud deployment topologies and interoperate with other blockchain networks and protocols. And as Kevin mentioned, we're going to wrap up for the live audience to answer your questions, work on next steps with you and your business to tailor the right solution to meet you where you are in your journey. So let's dive in. The collaboration that's been brought on by the DevOps revolution, it's significantly improved the delivery of software products and enterprise applications. There's still a lot of work to do. We still see today's enterprises trying to build data-driven solutions on 40-year-old application-centric architectures. You know, we've had waves where SOA, the service-oriented architecture, decomposing into more fine-grained microservices that are loosely coupled in these architectures, containerization and other technologies have certainly helped provide a cleaner separation of concerns for architects and developers operating their CI/CD pipelines for continuous integration, continuous delivery and deployment. Yet what we're still seeing is with more microservices comes finer grained data management operations in using cloud nomenclature. We've done well to get the monolithic spaghetti code out of the control plane, but the pathways for access in the data plane can often still remain spaghetti-like. And that gives us really zero integrity in trusting the data. We strive for a central source of truth, and we're developing security vulnerabilities at every stage of trying to share this data. And so this next web, what is being called Web 3, requires a dynamic, multi-source, trusted data exchange at scale. And so Fluree is consolidating the data management and access within the cloud native architecture and provides this path to data centricity. And in a data-centric architecture, this is where we're arming it with the integrity, security, and interoperability at its core. So we're allowing these efficient and dynamic, secure collaboration across enterprise borders oftentimes, geographic borders, and having a many-to-many model of consumption of this data, both for the people, the human beings interacting with the system, but also increasingly the autonomous actors in the machine learning, the bots, and the other AI models. So we're seeing where DevOps and DevSecOps with the security aspect is also driving the shift to a data-centric architecture. DevOps is all about the process and collaboration and hyper-automation to drive the pipeline. Fluree wants to help remove the impedance in this pipeline for developers and IT cloud operations. And 5 major questions that we're answering and that we've done in previous series with partners and what's available on Fluree University. It's all around who owns the data ship, who owns the data in a decentralized network within blockchains, and how are we handling privacy? The trust but verify, this comes down oftentimes to segregation of duties, or SOD, which is a big part of a DevOps pipeline. And how can we, since provenance, since origination of data, have every aspect on every state change in that data? And then, as I had mentioned, with these machine learning and autonomous actors in the state, how would we, from a governance perspective, we human beings, be able to reproduce the state of the data in the past? How can we time travel and take an instantaneous look at what was ingested by or being fed to some of these algorithms? And then looking forward, as DevOps perhaps merges with AI ops, and how can we utilize a governance plan to ensure that we're feeding trusted data into these autonomous models? And then the analytics for organizing, structuring, having the right ontologies for classification of data, so we're all speaking the same language in industries or with enterprises, and then being able to share this data while retaining the security, having co-resident security rules that governs the data. So this code as data and security permissions as data. These are aspects that Fluree has been working on since our inception. And why are companies excited about it? It's simple. We're saving people time, we're saving people money, and we're reducing the attack surface of your valuable data. When your stack is not data-centric, we find ourselves resorting to expensive and oftentimes insecure workarounds to achieve the benefits of data centricity. And independent research continues to show the expense and the risk involved in trying to retrofit APIs and other workarounds into that legacy application-centric architecture. And as we're looking at in this chart, it's sometimes a 6 to 10x multiple of the cost to stand up and deliver an application that might be composed of multiple microservices. But then by offering real-time query interfaces, moving data and shipping data into lakes and warehouses and other places, and just being able to share and consume through APIs, which give a very narrow view and a very narrow pipe into the data. This is also where we've opened up and a lot of the vulnerabilities are introduced in this chain. So we're working very hard to reduce this, and with our partners, as well as the companies using Fluree today, we see this data-centric architecture continuing to intersect with DLTs, distributed ledger technologies, which are instantiated today generally as blockchain networks. And Fluree's in use today with 3 main constituencies. One is established enterprises. The second is a lot of startups that are looking to gain market share, open up new markets, and maybe disrupt established enterprises. And then thirdly, we have public sector government agencies around the globe that are looking to be more responsive to the needs of their stakeholders. And Fluree is often used independently And you can use Fluree as a standalone platform deployed and managed by a platform like Zeeve that you'll see, but also Fluree is used in conjunction with other blockchain networks and protocols to achieve a complete solution. Whereas the blockchains that most people are familiar with, they have a design focus based around transacting assets and running the associated smart contract logics, which is a very important element of a blockchain design. Fluree is built for the complete life cycle of the data required to the whole life cycle for these applications. And some of these examples that you see on the screen are around master data management or master data services, or giving semantic query interfaces to the data that might be locked up or more opaque within a public or a permissionless type of blockchain network. Running master data services to feed operational artificial intelligence systems with high context data. We're seeing a ton of work and some standardization around identity management and verifiable credentials, whether it's fighting identity theft, know your customer and private, KYC data exchange, fraud and those types of anti-money laundering. And then an imperative that becomes more and more important every day is around audit, compliance, and privacy, whether these are government bodies with GDPR in the EU, CCPA in the United States, but the retention of data, the audit, and being able to time travel back and look at these are all the types of use cases, and we'll have one of these examples in terms of running a zero knowledge proof with Fluree later on in this demo. For those who are just joining the Fluree community, a quick recap of what is Fluree. Fluree is an open source, general purpose operational data store. It's built from the ground up with some unique characteristics. One of those being our persistent storage happens to be our blockchain that manages all the elements in a resource description framework, or RDF, which is a foundational W3C standard for the semantic web. Fluree injects metadata into the RDF blocks, which adds capabilities such as a temporal view to your information, allowing things that we call time travel. On top of this, we have a stateless graph database. So Fluree has separated the storage and management side of the Fluree DL, the distributed ledger, from Fluree DB, which is the stateless semantic graph database. And we use mature, well-known standards in the semantic web like Sparkle, which is essentially, I don't want to call it a SQL equivalent for an RDF triple store, but it's very familiar to people in that world. GraphQL is continuing to grow in the open source community, and we have a native JSON API into Fluree. And then our smart functions is sort of where smart contracts meet database triggers, and these Fluree smart functions span the read and write path through our database. And this is where we allow data to defend itself. This is where a lot of this data-centric security comes into play. So how does this fit into the tools and technologies that are being used today in cloud computing and blockchain development? Fluree is a polyglot. We have out of the box JavaScript libraries that can scale all the way out and be embedded for query interfaces into browsers, phones, and other devices through a native in-memory library. We have the scaling types of technologies available on the cloud, and then our core servers run typically with object storage or other optimized commercial storage that can be decentralized as well to run the database. So well-known and well-developed tools. And so when we look at how Fluree fits with the Zeeve platform that will transition over to, the DevOps landscape and being able to execute this closed loop process of continuous integration, delivery, and even some people going to continuous deployment. There's a huge array of tools that are in use by developers and IT cloud operations. What Zeeve does is they make things simpler to use the right tool for the job. Fluree ourselves uses these tools in everything from our sprint planning and ideation through release and coding, unit testing, integration testing of our product, and delivering not only our open source and our commercial products, but also our own on-demand database as a service operations. And so DevOps is all about increasing the velocity of our delivery and our delivery of business value. And we have examples of each of these facets of DevOps in the Fluree University Learning Library. But luckily, when it comes to consolidating this tool chain to automate the deployment and the monitoring and the analytics, we have a partner like Zeeve that has built and hosted a service like this. So today we're going to take an example of a pre-packaged off of the github.com/Fluree. We have a zero knowledge proof that I believe Gan has packaged up for a deeper dive and demonstration. So I'll be back for the live Q&A with the live audience. Now I want to turn it over to our featured speaker Gan Vashista. Gan's the co-founder and CTO of Zeeve. It's been a Fluree partner with us for a while, and it's a pleasure to welcome you. So Gan, please take over and dive on in.
Yeah, thank you, Buck. So, as Buck just talked about, increasing the velocity of delivery. So, that has been the core principle based upon which we created Zeeve and called it an enterprise blockchain automation platform. So the major focuses, were upon time and saving cost. So it's kind of, the whole architecture is divided into two segments from the point of, what it delivers as a platform. One is the core deployment piece. So it covers deployments, the infrastructure layer, and it involves different clouds. So as you see, it supports multiple blockchain protocols, including Fluree. And more specifically, if you are going ahead with the deployment, it does 100% automation. For example, if you're trying with Kubernetes on your own and doing a Fluree deployment somewhere, I would rather say that, Zeeve does it for you without you going into your cloud, creating a cluster or, developing or building other services around it, but simply, automating every step from creating a cluster to, adding services on top of it and then taking it further. Second, it's heterogeneous in terms of, what infrastructure layer does it support. So if you are, having a relationship with AWS or already has an account with Azure or Google Cloud, DigitalOcean on the economic side, or even IBM Cloud, so it offers you the flexibility to choose which cloud you would want to deploy or start your network upon. And in fact, you can also expand to private clouds or on-premise infrastructure layers. We have recently done some deployments with some of the regional banks in India, like DCB Bank and all, on-premise cloud. Reason being, on-premise infrastructure mostly is preferred with banks and other security firms for compliance and specific needs on policies. Then the second segment is about monitoring and integration with different kind of services. So you only reach the starting line, and the green flag is just about starting the real journey into your production environment. The real journey is about maintaining it and keep a 5-9er policy in health. So we do capture a lot of data, starting with cloud resource side logs. We also capture Fluree specific data points, and then we also do some generic security related captures from those machines, protocols, and details. And then we do an intelligent monitoring on top of it, so to provide real-time alerts, sometimes even before the fault or crash occurs, and sometimes before your hard drive chokes or your CPU is about to be shouting on an upscale need. So this monitoring and analytic layer actually provides the completeness to your production environments. And then you have web services for faster app development and some additional services on top of it, because if you're building a supply chain network, you don't only need Fluree or Fabric or any other blockchain protocol, but you would you would need or might require a decentralized IoT cloud, some kind of governance model around how you would want to set up different level of permissioning, and then some kind of decentralized storage and vault for different key management practices. So ultimately, packing all these and bundling into one platform called Zeeve gives you or makes you efficient more than 60% on cost and specifically 90% or more on time. So these are the numbers we have generated out of our existing customers and their experiences. So these are not just numbers there. We already have 2,000 plus developers on board using it and experimenting and learning, or maybe some taking it to production or monetizing their solutions. So moving ahead, we'll see how the platform is built. What is the approach, and specifically, what is the new approach we're taking? So, the legacy stack, where we have been until blockchain happened to us so far, we've been picking softwares and applications using different type of orchestration methodologies, be it Podman, VMware, OpenShift, Kubernetes, and then, using those orchestrations into different cloud layers to deploy, keep our applications up and running and monitor them. And then beyond, just deployment, there is this another stack like, Sumo Logic, New Relic, even AWS monitoring itself, Grafana, Prometheus, which supports, our legacy application orchestration stack over cloud to allow us, complete end-to-end monitoring of our application and services. But this stack, it's just quite complicated when it comes to blockchain. For example, if you're an enterprise, an automobile company, or maybe, a large company maintaining digital records or educational certificates or similar, or maybe you're building something very data centric about integrity and security or privacy, you might have 2-3 different use cases coming in at you as an enterprise, while 2-3 different vendors would come in to offer you different type of solutions with different type of stacks available with them. So as an enterprise, you have a very complicated and complex life cycle on your end to maintain and provide all those infrastructure needs to your vendors. So the new approach we have taken in Zeeve talks about having at the base core layer, having all the clouds and private cloud infrastructure support available, and then on top of it allowing all the sort of orchestration possibilities one would require, and then on top of it you can deploy your choice of protocol, be it Corda, Fabric, Sawtooth, Ethereum credits, or Fluree. So it's about choosing and staying with the flexibility and with your existing relationship and comfort, rather than going with vendor choices and diving deeper into the complexity of managing that infrastructure. What it gets you is a certainty on deriving performance, because if the stack is unified, you have a central controlled monitoring, in turn benefiting you both with cost and performance. And then you have further scaling opportunities and capacity available without worrying about if the simple network is going to scale in a different cloud now for another 2-3 nodes, or maybe going to be in another stakeholders cloud account, but there's going to be a different type of orchestration there. So it optimizes the stack. It helps with continuous monitoring, real-time monitoring, and further extension or extensibility under the single umbrella. So this is what Zeeve supports as of now. It's a list of protocols. It supports all major public and permission protocols. And then it allows you a flexibility on all sort of cloud partners available there. So you can even bring your own cloud. Ultimately, 97% saving in time and up to 60% saving in cost. Let's now take a look at the approach we have taken, how the platform is structured. So you see there are 3 pillars of the platform on which it is built upon: network and security, ops and management, apps and services. So if you're going live with a production use case on your Fluree protocol network or decentralized application, you would require all 3 pillars throughout your journey or your life cycle into production. Network and security, because you would require your network to first maybe start on AWS, then scale on Azure and Google Cloud further with multiple parties joining it. Or you would want to sometime tomorrow simply migrate from AWS because of certain business continuity reasons, or maybe some technical reasons. Then you would require one-click node deployment. So you're starting your network, or maybe scaling it, or adding more nodes to it, or adding more ledger nodes, query nodes to it, you would simply click and those features will be available to you. So you don't have to go back to the command line, do 20 many different files, or open three different folders and do certain stuff to do so. And you don't even have to go to your cloud consoles. And all of this stuff can be seen on unified dashboards available to you. I'll be showing you this dashboard in a while. Then the security is inbuilt, so you don't have to worry about have you set up the right VPC parameters and stuff in your cloud before going ahead with the deployment or setting up your nodes or services. The Zeeve takes care of it. You don't have to worry about if the firewall is configured the right way, that the ports are mapped and restricted accordingly. There is appropriate whitelisting, blacklisting done on what and who can access based upon the permissioning you have provided. So all that is handled under networking security by design. Ops and management, it's 100% automated. So it does monitor your cloud resources, CPU, RAM, hard drive, network IO, and even storage parameters. And it not just monitors them, it keeps you notified, when can you scale up, when can you scale down, how much cost can you save specifically. So someday it can also tell you, what, if you move specific assets to Google Cloud than AWS, then you might end up saving, some $500 a month. And then auto scaling and healing. This comes with, that intelligent monitoring and analysis we do. And again, everything is available through intelligent dashboards, some analytic graphs and different details we plot on right in front of your screens. You have a network visualizer. You can see, how your nodes are looking, if some services are down or up, and everything's, related to that. In the end, it's GIT integrated. So if you are building an application in your organization and you would want to go live or even spin up a quick POC, your developers can simply commit it to GIT. Then you authorize your GIT branch into Zeeve, and your product is readily available to deploy in one click. And not just one time, but every time you shoot some updates to GIT, Zeeve picks it up through intelligent webhooks and allow you to publish the upgrades and updates to all your nodes without worrying about how each and every node will be updated manually. And this is inevitable. This is quite inevitable in the industry. If you do updates and upgrades 7 times, you are prone to fail 1 by 7. That's by maths and probability. I treat service as a core to allow you deeper application interfaces, and even going up to legacy application connectors. A DApp marketplace, very similar to iOS, Android marketplace, where you can not just keep a private section of your product, but you can also publish it to anybody who would want to come and simply one click deploy, be it paid or free. Then API endpoints, specifically for the world which is coming out of 2.0 and simply don't want to understand blockchain much initially, but want to use it because of what benefits it provide. And then secure vault for different key management and other needs. So moving on, these are the value it generates as a differentiator comparing what you do manually, the legacy approach. Poor time to market, of course, because if you do it manually, you would take maybe certain attempts, certain number of resources, consuming higher cost. But on the other side, it's completely automated, so almost no time. We'll see a Fluree deployment live on this webinar today, so we'll understand how much time it takes. And then it's pay as you go. You can reduce your team size because one resource can manage 5 different customers of yours having different type of use cases or implementations on different Fluree networks or other protocols. So it's like increasing your performance and efficiency by 10 times at least. And then this is not reactive or error prone. This is proactive and self-healing. So the system would know what is going to happen, what is going wrong right now, which may go wrong tomorrow and might affect your network. Like I talked about CPU spiking at night, hard drive going to choke itself, some blocks are not syncing, some nodes are being non-responsive. So the system knows it before anyone else. And then lack of standards. So because different type of orchestration, configuration styles and cloud parameters will come in while you deploy, monitor, and manage your networks. There is no single policy which you would apply. Even if there is, your vendors have to be dictated to follow that policy. But what if you allow your vendors to simply use Zeeve to do all the installations and deployments for you, or you do it for your customers? Then you can manage all the compliance and security through this one single umbrella without worrying that what have we missed every next time. So from this point forward, I would talk about what kind of use cases Zeeve would fit if you're using it to deploy. It would fit all the sort of enterprise use cases, consortium use cases, blockchain startup, specifically because it's not just economic, but it is faster. And consulting companies are using it, because it helps them quickly spin up POCs and then simply take those POCs to production as well. So now we'll simply jump onto a demonstration piece where we'll see Zeeve in action and how it helps you deploy your Fluree nodes and get going. So I'll quickly jump onto the dashboard. So this is what you see when you first time logs into Zeeve. Here you see that the kind of networks you have deployed so far. So me being an administrator or DevOps engineer or a senior guy in an organization maintaining 3 different networks for my organizations, 3 different clients, this is what I would see. If I'm an enterprise and 3 vendors have developed 3 different solutions for me in 3 different protocols and created these networks for me, I'm managing those vendor relationships and network health on my enterprise's behalf, then this is what I would see. You can see this is the section where you see the list of protocols coming in front of you. You can see this network is Sawtooth, Hyperledger Sawtooth. This is our favorite Fluree. Then you have an Ethereum node running as well. So you see the network count here. You see the number of nodes here. So these networks may have multiple nodes inside them. Some of them will have 1 node. Some of them will have multiple nodes. So this is the total accumulated count. Then you have products. So these products are the products I talked about, which you can push into Zeeve through your GIT, and it will keep a count of how many products do you own and how many products you can actually further deploy in just 1 click. This is the list of the nodes. You can see the name of the network and then specific region. So because it's on AWS, you can see it here. This Fluree node is deployed on AWS. The name of the network is Fluree ZKP, Zero Knowledge Proof. It is deployed in AP, Asia Pacific Northeast 2 region. So you can choose this. This is US West 2. It's a different protocol, but it's in different region. So you can start your network with 1 region and then you can scale it continuously. Yeah, I left it red, intentionally. This is the status. So you see all the nodes are running healthy. This one is down. So you can see, what is going wrong with this node. So you see the status or the health of your nodes right in front of your dashboard itself. Then you have endpoints. So if you are building an application, trying to connect with the node for certain API integrations, other operations, you have endpoint available as well. So this is the public IP of the instance, which can be used for different purposes. The data it has been created, and then certain operations you can do, like view the statistics. We'll go into that in a while. You can restart it, you can stop it, you can delete it. Delete is very interesting, and I'll show you why. And then analytics. This is a blockchain parametric analytics. So you have both cloud resource analytic available to you, which are specifically the machine parameters, and the second one is the blockchain parametric Fluree specific parameters. Delete is important because usually when you create a resource on AWS, you start scaling that resource or adding more resources to AWS accounts. Deleting is like you have to delete each and individual resources manually to get rid of the leakage on the cost. But if you press this button here, Zeeve will make sure all the resources, including the network resources, storage resources, security related resources, even the compute resources, will get cleaned up automatically. When you just do this delete here. So now we'll see how do we get into launching a new Fluree node or network. So I'll simply click this button. If you see, I just click this button, launch network. It'll allow me to choose the number of protocols. I can scroll down. It's Hyperledger Sawtooth, Fabric, Ethereum, Credits, Corda, and here goes our Fluree. So I'll simply select Fluree. I'll press next. It will now ask me to add a node. So I can maybe I can name it Fluree worker. So this is the name of my server node. I can then choose the type of the mode of the ledger, query or dev. I can choose any of them. I would choose ledger here. Then these are some API ports which you can change. So now when you're configuring these ports, Zeeve will ensure that your security policies on the cloud will act accordingly. So you don't have to worry about what is blocked, what is open, even if you change it. And there are certain Fluree specific parameters which you can configure here, and then you'll have to simply press next. The next choice you will have is like choose a cloud. So you can choose as many cloud as you want, but before you choose it, all you have to do is to authorize the cloud. So I'll show you the authorize section, but before that, let's get going with the Fluree network. And during the during the time it will deploy itself, we'll see how the cloud authorization works. So So you can name your network. So this name would help you recognize, what the purpose of the network is, of this Fluree network is. And then you can choose the data center. For say, I'm going to choose again AP Northeast 2, or maybe, US West 2. This is my choice. So I'll have all the data centers available, which my cloud account, my AWS account has in its, with all the permissions. So I'll choose for say Asia Pacific Northeast 2. I'll select the type of instances. Again, based upon what is allowed to me in my AWS account would be coming here. So I'll simply choose T3 medium, number of instances 1, and I'll click create. So now we see this notification has come up that my network setup has begun. I can see a task list coming up here, which says, creating a network. If I go into the details, I see, what is happening right now, importing key pairs, creating different virtual machines over the cloud. And then, certain different specific operations will happen. And there is, a live activity feed, which keep, coming in here, and you can, always check what is happening and where have you reached. So meanwhile it happens, let's simply go to, the cloud section. So let's go to my account. When you go to my account, you see my cloud section. My cloud section is about, these authorizations. So right now, I have every cloud configured in here, even the GIT as well. So you can authorize by simply, clicking in here. So if you haven't authorized, the system will say authorize your cloud, and you will click this button. Most of the authorizations happen through OAuth and cloud recommended methodologies. So this is like, you are adding an application in your cloud. It's very similar to how you do logins and signups, or use different applications using Google or Facebook, and authorize, through your Google sign-in or Facebook sign-in. So this is, very similar. This is a secure and cloud recommended methodology. We have followed the authorization principles, following, each and every cloud's own guideline defined properly for authorizations. So yeah, so let's go back to the dashboard again. So you can see, this Fluree node is being set up. It's not yet online, but it has come up. You can see it has come up. It has not got online yet. So you cannot delete certain operations. There's a lock icon here which says, it's not ready. You cannot delete. You cannot go to stats and other stuff. So until this happens, let's check into the existing Fluree node here. So you can go in here. You can see, this is my existing Fluree node. I can see the logs which has been there recently. So we have all sort of logs available. You have an endpoint available because, this Fluree network has been deployed with or installed with the zero knowledge proof application on top of it. I'll show you how to deploy an application, and we'll check that out too. Here is list of instances. So if I'll keep adding more instances, the list will keep going up. So you see the IP host, RAM usage, CPU usage, the region, again, the cloud, the state, and then you have, these sections here. So we'll go to stats section first to see, what it gives you on the cloud side. So you see these parameters coming up on this node. It says CPU usage, RAM usage, storage, inodes, network usage, and load. So Zeeve monitors these parameters continuously. So how we do it is we do it using a very small footprint C agent, which keeps capturing all the data 24/7. So it keeps capturing that data, and it generates real-time notifications. So, you don't be surprised if you sign up on Zeeve, create a Fluree network, and underestimate the resource needs. And don't get surprised if an email comes in and says, your CPU is choking constantly or very often, or your hard drive is about to go full because you've chosen pretty less. So these graphs would tell you. And now, because this network has been created very recently, this has almost nothing much on. There's no substantial peaks or alarms for me to worry about as of now. I can check data as old as like last 50 minutes on what's happening here. If I'll go back and if I go to the blockchain parametric analytic piece, I can see how my Fluree specific stuff is doing. I have currently 33 blocks in my network. The version I'm using is this. It's in ledger mode running right now. I've got 200 ms snapshot threshold, 2000 ms of group timeout, and it's running RAF 3.0. I've got 982 flakes so far published, considering all the transactions which happened. There is a ledger size I'm having here, the state of ledger, and the transaction rate. So this is interesting. This is not transaction. This is not throughput. This is the rate at which your network is currently operating or doing transactions. So you're doing 19 transactions per hour. This is what it tells me. And there's a graph against it too, as well, which I can further see. Beyond this, you can see different details, different blocks which has been created so far, their hash, transaction ID, timestamp, status, and auth. So if I click on view, it would show me, the predicate, doc, predicate name, predicate type, multi, and rhetoric collection. So these are the details which are there, and you would explore it. If you go manually, you would explore it using Fluree as well. So it would publish me everything simply here. And then below this, it would give me, JVM specific parameters. So these are, JVM is like a very specific or important component of your Fluree node or service, because, this is what it keeps it going. This is the engine of your car, I would say, if you're using Fluree. So it gives you how much your JVM is consuming as of now, CPU, RAM, and its uptime. And then what version are you using right now on OpenJDK for your JVM? Specific, daemon, live peak, and started thread counts on your JVM, the heap size in kilobytes. And then you can also see the current JVM threads which are running, what user permissions they are running with, how many, the time and other stuff. You can all see it here. You don't have to go to the console and command line to check this out. And at the bottom, you have list of ledgers running. Right now, we have one ledger, the size is this, status is ready, blocks are 33 in count, and there is only one index as of now. So this is the blockchain specific parameter you can take a quick peek into. So these are not just parameters. I got signed out session. So simply log in. So these are not just parameters you can see, but our recent Fluree network is also live. So I'll simply go in a while to deploy an application. So the stats which we have seen on cloud side and the blockchain parameter side, they're not just captured only. They're captured, and then beyond just capturing this, there is a set of intelligence which is there, which keeps monitoring if your block count or your size of the ledger or the JVM is misbehaving, the system would know, and then it would notify you accordingly that there is something wrong with your Fluree node, not just on the service side, but the depth of the service is like up to the JVM level, and it would notify you. And furthermore, we are building something which can help you self-heal. If something is wrong with JVM, the system would know how to fix it, because we are working with Fluree very closely on these things, that how to make sure the uptime remains as high as possible. So this is the new network we have created recently. I would go to it, but before going to it, I'll go to the dashboard again. I'll go to the product section. I'll quickly talk about what the product section is. So for example, if I have a GID repository which I'm committing my code to from my laptop, or if I'm sitting at office, I'm working as a developer and committing my production applications to, then I have GID authorizations done in my cloud, my Zeeve account in my account section. Then I can add my products. So we'll quickly see what adding a product is like. So you can add a product by simply filling in the title, name, descriptions. You can choose the protocol. You can choose Fluree as a protocol here. You can fill in the description of your application. This is all aesthetics, but let's move on to the specific pieces. You can upload certain documentations if required. You can choose the privacy setting. If you would want to go public so that everybody using Zeeve can see and simply deploy your app, you can go public, or you can simply keep it private if it is for your customer or for your internal usage only. Prepaid, obvious, it makes sense if it is public. Then you can configure your product. Because I have authorized my GID repository already, the system would simply allow me to select out of these repo. So you can see I have these many repositories under my GID hub account. GID hub authorization happens through OAuth again, so you'll have to simply fill in, or your developer will have to fill in his own credentials, and then he can see all the repositories here. He can for say this is the legal phishing sample, I can pick it here and then submit. This would add a product into my product section. But what specific you got to do to add your product? You can go to the documentation section. There is a specific zeeve.read.docs.io available where you can check how to add your product. Once you have added a product, it's available in my product section. You can visit it from the dashboard, or you can go to marketplace where you can see all the publicly published protocols or products. Like this Fluree knowledge proof, it's for everyone. You can tomorrow sign up on Zeeve and simply start deploying it on your network. We'll do it in a while as well. Or you can go to my product again. If you go to my product and you see Fluree knowledge proof, you have a deploy button here. You can click here. You can select the network you would want to deploy upon. So we'll select our latest network which we have just created, and we'll say deploy. When I click deploy, another task started, in the taskbar, which is, installing a product. If you see the details again, there's a lot of stuff happening in the activity section, and it keeps happening. So this stuff keeps happening, and you can see, what is happening. It is installing packages. It is installing Python and other packages onto your node right now, so that your zero knowledge proof example would run properly. So dependencies, configurations, and everything is done in here. And if it requires additional storage or services, that would also be done in your cloud automatically. So let the product install on this Fluree network. So you see, if I go into any network, I can clearly see this endpoint coming in here. As soon as your product is installed, you'll see this endpoint here. I'll simply copy this endpoint. I'll go to a separate tab and paste it, and I'll see, what is happening here. So this is, what we have just deployed. It's a phishing secret demo, a zero knowledge proof application we have deployed. So you can do transactions from here. I'll simply do a transaction by generating a proof for a legal zone. As soon as I have a proof, I can submit the proof. So submitting is a transaction I'm doing here. Then I can go to the verify section. I can do a verification on one of the submissions I've done. This one is the recent, and verification is another type of transaction. So you can say verified. Now these transactions, they actually go in, and when you go to the statistics of a network, you see these transactions coming in here. You see these transactions coming in here. You see the flakes in those transactions against the blocks. So you can read everything which is happening at the back. So this is all tightly coupled. So this product is being deployed. So most of it, you see, it's in authorizing your cloud, authorizing your GIT, simply committing to your GIT, and every time you upgrade or update your product, it comes in automatically. So it's almost installed. So you see, while speaking or discussing, about Fluree's capabilities and how it is automatically deployed and maintained and monitored, we have actually created a network. We have actually started deploying an application on top of it, which we had readily available on our GIT, and it is also, successfully installed. So it successfully installed means it has an endpoint created as well. So you see, this all happens in a couple of minutes and in no time. You have some separate tabs available for network listing, node listing. You have API section through which you can configure some IoT APIs. You have data specific sections where you can see your IoT data, and in the end the marketplace section. To further add nodes, you can simply go here. You can choose which network you would want to your additional node to add, and you can go ahead with that. This is the section which says what is happening so far. I've been doing many things since last 12 hours. So my account says I've been doing these many exercises. I can maximize it and see. I can filter it according to errors and different things which has happened. So far no errors, only some progress or pending activities I've got, or I can simply see all. So this probably gives up almost everything you can do on Fluree and continue to do on Fluree and other protocols using Zeeve. So this is about optimizing the way you do blockchain today and implement your solutions and go production rather than going the legacy way. So I think with this I would simply talk about the additional stuff which Zeeve allow you. It's about if you're doing a very special implementation where you require Hyperledger Fabric, but you would require Fluree as a state database, or running Fluree in parallel for off-chain needs instead of MySQL or Postgres, then Zeeve comes in really handy, because you can have a Fabric network created from this, you can have a Fluree network created from this, and then you can connect both of them in a smart way without worrying that I assume most of you have gone through Fluree and Fabric and these kind of names already, so you know how complicated it is to deploy and maintain these kind of critical implementations and how much time usually it takes. So I think I'll stop here, and I'll open the session to questions, and I'll hand it over to Kevin here. So Kevin, yeah, over to you.
Thanks, Gon. That was a really excellent presentation there. It's truly inspiring to see Fluree in action on the Zeeve platform. It's a great tool for DevOps folks that are serious about monitoring and automating their Fluree instances. I'll note that Fish and Secrets demo that you showed there, that's an available demo on Fluree's GitHub. So any of you are more interested in diving into that, you can check it out. So we're now at the end of the presentation portion of this webinar. Thanks again for giving us your time. We'll get to some questions. One frequently asked question I'll just answer right off the bat. Yes, this has been recorded, so we will share the recording with you guys shortly. First question I have up for Gone, but honestly, I'd like both of you to answer this. What is a good application for using Fluree and Hyperledger together?
It's Gone.
Gone, I believe.
Yeah.
There you are.
Yeah. So yeah, I got the question. So, this is a very good question, in fact, because, until now we've been using Hyperledger solo, we've been using Fluree solo, but there is a new category of or classification of use cases which are coming in. So that makes it more powerful together. For example, if I'm using Hyperledger Fabric with Postgres or MySQL as an off-chain database, I'm actually pushing in too hard on my smart contracts or chain codes for different validations. I'm putting in a lot of if-else conditions there, and moreover, I'm actually regenerating trust by revalidating what exists in MySQL or Postgres. But if you're using Fluree, you can simply replace the load on your chain codes, because you don't have to do all the if and else in the chain codes. Fluree itself is capable of maintaining that. And then you don't have to revalidate your data into MySQL or Postgres, because Fluree has its own immutability available. So you can trust the data which resides in, plus operate upon it. Plus you can extend the privacy in a very optimized, faster way, comparing, how do you do it in Hyperledger Fabric using applying custom encryption or using PDO, private data objects. That's comparatively very, very better and fast. So if you're doing a supply chain use case, very extensive, highly scalable, having at least 25 stakeholders participating, or a trade finance use case, or maybe a digital record management use case, because that's where data expense like nothing else. You have certificates of, for example, it's an academic certificate use case. You have humongous amount of data coming in, and then revalidating the verification of them into the ledger out of MySQL, Postgres, or other big data is very, very time consuming and exerting.
Excellent, thanks, Gone. Buck, any color to add there?
Yeah, I think that the validation from Gone, who's got experience across all of these, has been wonderful. So very well said. Fluree as the world state within Fabric, the underlying state database. Sometimes people are taking a look at having some enhanced capabilities there, but yeah, an overall application and having the right query interfaces, which is sometimes difficult or impossible to get into your chain code, or some of the opaqueness that's within a transactional blockchain. And then the different topologies, because Fluree's ledger is a permissioned ledger. We know when we manage it for a very high throughput, and almost running from a query standpoint, almost running like a CDN, a content delivery network for data. So as you scale around the world and you'd like to have edge nodes and other aspects, you can aggregate it and use Fluree as that data-centric front-end facade into a Hyperledger Fabric that's running your transactional elements. So yeah, there's really good compatibilities there and complementary actions. And we're working with the Hyperledger community and IBM's blockchain platform team, and the collaboration that we have is definitely going to continue to grow.
Excellent, thanks, guys. I have another question for both of you from Rob. Good to see you on the webinar. I'm wondering about the intersection between Fluree data-centric security and CI/CD triggered schema update deployment with Fluree and Zeeve. Any insights, features, etc., with respect to basically patching a data-centric security locked down deployment?
Yeah, that's a good question, Rob. And it looks like, CI/CD, it's not just delivery, but also auto deploy. So I think that as you go into these faster deployment cycles and your automation of, all the unit tests, everything runs, and there's really no manual intervention into deployment. Gon, did you want to expand upon that? You see this on a daily basis.
Yeah, I see, Rob has asked, another question asking for the expansion on GIT and CI/CD pipeline specifically as well. So I would, merge the answer in one. I would say, CI/CD pipeline is all about, as Buck initially mentioned, increasing the velocity towards market. It's about, patching up your products, your releases very, very quickly, about fixing things once it has gone live, about adding more upgrades and updates, not just on, the product or application side, but on the protocol side. So Zeeve covers, with Fluree integratedly two things. One, you can have a seamless CI/CD pipeline using GIT. So, you may have a team of developers with you who are building in one applications all together. So they can all commit to one branch. You can authorize that GIT or different GIT accounts or specific account into Zeeve, and then select that specific branch and allow Zeeve to, install webhooks into your GIT. So every time you commit to it, after the initial deployment, it keeps, pulling in the data and keep pushing into all the nodes. If you have 10 nodes running out of Fluree, or different ledgers running and requiring upgrade out of your application stack, this would pick up automatically and keep installing it there. Furthermore, there is another pipeline which we maintain. For example, if Fluree has released another version, and this requires an upgrade on all your existing running ledgers and all, and because it's backward compatible, you won't mind taking it because it has come up with some security patches. So that is done by Zeeve automatically. So you would get a notification in your cloud account saying, there is this new Fluree version available. These are the things and all. Would you want to upgrade to it? So, and then specifically because there might be some challenges, so there is a consulting thing which we can do jointly with Fluree and help your development team understand what those changes will mean to your application and how do you accommodate them in the right appropriate manner. So I hope that answers your initial bit of questions.
Thanks, Gon. I have another one for you right here. Amr asks to Zeeve, is there any unexpected problems at any stage of deploying? How can I react, and are those errors automatic?
Right. So that's a very good question, Amr, because reacting to something is always a post-mortem. We believe in proactively working on it. So Zeeve as a tool, it has a very structured, optimized approach of deployment. We have practiced it ourselves, many times before delivering it to you as a live platform piece. So if you manually would upload or deploy or create a Kubernetes cluster or do some Docker orchestration and then further go into 30 many files, do 50 many configuration parameters. If you do it 10 times, by mathematics, you would fail 1 out of 10 times. So Zeeve does it automatically and it's well tested and optimized. So it does it 10 out of 10 times the equivalent successful way. It doesn't fail at all. Second, if it fails, there is certain exception. For example, Zeeve has been busy creating some VMs in your AWS cloud, and suddenly you go back to your cloud console, or some authorized party in your cloud side goes back and deletes some block storage which Zeeve has just created. So yes, of course, it will land up with an exception saying, something has gone wrong with the block storage or storage unit which was available a while ago, but during the installation it has vanished. So it would report it to you exactly the same way it has happened. So Zeeve would tell you that there was a resource in your cloud, but it is no more available. So this explains us two things. One, Zeeve reports exceptions. It acts proactively as well, but even an exception occurs, it tells you the right way. Even if it has happened in your cloud, it tells you what has happened in your cloud. Second, it doesn't override your cloud until you allow it to. So it may recreate the resource, but by design, it does not override your cloud console. So you can always go back to your cloud console, change things, remove Zeeve as an application, or delete or add more resources manually too. So it never overrides until you allow it to. Yeah, so that's the design principle approach we have taken. It always keeps you notified.
Yeah. Buck, we have time for one more rapid fire question before we wrap this up. What's a good use case for a stateless containerized Fluree runtime? So I believe this is a question of scale.
Oh, Steve. Oh, okay. Yeah, good question. And well, if it's a rapid fire round here in the time that we have, one application is kind of a read-only one, or if you need access just to the data and you aren't writing back, you can think of it almost as like a CDN or like a content delivery network for data. and I touched on that in some of the Hyperledger fabric and some of the other blockchain permissionless and other types of scenarios. So yeah, if you're doing fast read-only operations for stateless containerized data in Fluree, that's used. A second idea is, building responsive dApps or responsive design for modern decentralized applications, whether you're an ISV delivering a product, building a new product, or an end user or a systems integrator. When you're in a cloud environment, and like you saw with Zeeve, you want to have that deployability and have that manageability of that unit, whether you're going to AWS or GCP, Oracle, IBM, Azure, any of the other cloud providers. It gives you a single type of deployable unit for your data, because when we think about containerizing compute, what Docker and then Kubernetes have done for the orchestration and the packaging of compute and logic types of resources into containers, we're also thinking about how to containerize data and what the data elements look like in these types of applications. So hopefully that gives a bit in the time box we have, and if there's some follow-up for the specific architecture, the deployment behind that question, we're always happy to take a look.
Thanks, Buck. Yeah, it does seem like we're over our scheduled time. I see quite a lot more questions. So if we didn't get to yours today, I do apologize, but we'll personally follow up with you after the event. Once again, thank you so much for spending an hour today with us. Make sure to check out the Zeeve platform at zeeve.io. And from the Fluree side, we're open source and we're free. So try us out at fluree.ee/try. We don't even require an email, just get it installed on your machine and start building. Thank you all again. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you, Gon. Thank you, Buck, and have a fantastic day.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.